The turning of a calendar page is a curious and profound event. For most of the world, it is merely a marker of time's relentless and often unconscious passage. It is a signal to discard the old and hang the new. But for the discerning few, for the individuals who are serious about the enterprise of living, it is something more. It is the unveiling of a fresh plot of land, a clean slate, a quiet, empty foundation upon which an entirely new structure can be built. The year 2025, which lies before us, is not just another year. It is a fresh plot of land that has been deeded to you and you alone. It is a gift of 365 pristine days, a generous inheritance of potential. And upon this land, you have been given both the profound privilege and the immense responsibility to serve as the chief architect of your own life. This is the great and defining truth of our existence. We are not merely inhabitants of our lives, we are its designers. We are not victims of circumstance, we are the architects of our own reality. And so, as we stand here at the edge of this fresh plot of land, we must ask the most fundamental question an architect can ever ask. What kind of structure will you build? Will you, like so many, hastily and without a plan, erect a shack of reaction? Will you build your days from the flimsy, found materials of momentary pleasures, of easy distractions, of the convenient excuses that are always lying about? Will your life be a structure with no blueprint, a weak foundation, and thin walls, providing no real shelter from the inevitable storms of challenge and adversity? This is the life built on accident, a dwelling of quiet desperation, where one is always busy patching leaks and boarding up windows, but never truly building anything of lasting value. Or will you undertake the grand, noble, and difficult work of constructing a cathedral of intention, a structure of character, of achievement, of meaning, and of strength? A noble life designed with a clear vision, built upon a solid foundation of timeless principles, with walls that rise with integrity and grace. A structure that not only shelters you, but inspires all who look upon it, a testament to the master builder you were always meant to be. The difference between the shack and the cathedral is not a matter of luck, of talent, or of circumstance. It is a matter of philosophy. It is a matter of design. Today, we will not discuss fleeting solutions, which are the architectural equivalent of painting over a rotting wall. We will instead study the architect's code. These are not tips. They are the immutable, timeless laws of sound construction for a human life. These are the principles that separate a life of accident from a life of design. Let us, with unflinching honesty, examine the two mindsets, the philosophies of the two builders. First, there is the amateur builder. They stand on their plot of land, overwhelmed. Their philosophy is a collection of excuses. They look at the ground and say, the soil here is poor. My circumstances are not ideal. They look at their tools and say, my resources are not enough. If only I had a better start, then I could build something great. They look at the sky and say, the weather is against me. I will wait for a better season, for a moment of inspiration. Their life is a story of waiting for perfect conditions that will never arrive. The result is a plot of land overgrown with the weeds of neglect. Now, let us consider the master architect. They stand on the very same plot of land. They see the same soil, possess the same tools, and face the same weather. But their philosophy is entirely different. They look at the ground and say, this is the land I have been given. I will work with it. I will enrich it. I am responsible for my own soil. They look at their tools and say, these are the tools I have. It is my duty to sharpen them, to master them, to become a craftsman of the highest order. And they look at the sky and say, the weather is not a reason to delay. It is a condition to be planned for. A great structure is not one that has never faced a storm, but one that was designed to withstand one. The master architect's philosophy is one of profound and absolute ownership. They know that the quality of the final structure is not determined by the plot of land, but by the character and the code of the architect himself. This is the choice that is before you right now. It is a choice of philosophy, a choice that will determine everything that follows. Will you adopt the passive, waiting creed of the amateur, or will you adopt the active, responsible creed of the master? The purpose of our time together is to study that creed. to unroll the ancient scrolls upon which the laws of masterful building are written. The architect's code is not complex, but it is demanding. It is a holistic approach, attending to every stage of the great work. First, we will study the architect's most sacred and essential tool, the art of creating the blueprint. This is the phase of vision, where we learn how to translate our vague desires into a clear, ambitious, and detailed plan for the entire structure. Then, we will go to the construction site and begin the most difficult and most important physical work. We will learn the principles of laying the foundation. This is the unseen, unglamorous work of building the habits, the discipline, and the integrity upon which everything else will rest. With the foundation secure, we will then explore the thrilling process of the construction. This is where we will learn how to raise the walls of our character by embracing the principles of deliberate challenge, unwavering resilience, and the relentless protection of our focus. And finally, once the structure is built, we will learn the art of the inhabitation. For a building is not a home until it is filled with a soul. This is where we learn to furnish our magnificent structure with the light of wisdom and the warmth of gratitude, transforming a life of mere success into a life of profound fulfillment. This is the path of the architect. It is a path of deliberate, conscious, and masterful creation. The plot of land for your future is clear and waiting. The code of the masters is about to be revealed. The choice is no longer whether you can build, but whether you will. The hour for dreaming is over. The hour for building has arrived. Pick up your tools. Let us break ground. In our introduction, we accepted our role as the chief architect of our own lives. We stand now on the fresh, unclaimed plot of land that is our future, the raw potential of the days and years to come. We have made the fundamental choice to build a cathedral of intention, not a shack of reaction. And so, we arrive at the first and most sacred act of all creation. Before the first shovel breaks the ground, before the first stone is laid, before the first sound of the hammer echoes, the great work must happen in a silent, consecrated space. It must happen in the inner sanctum of the architect's mind. This is the creation of the grand design. It is the drawing of the blueprint. I must impress upon you the immense gravity of this act. To build without a blueprint is to guarantee failure. It is to build a monument to chaos, a structure whose walls are misaligned, whose rooms lead nowhere, and whose foundation is destined to crack. A life lived without a clear design is precisely this, a series of chaotic, disconnected efforts that ultimately lead to a place of profound regret. The first philosophy of the architect's code is, therefore, the most important. You must have a clear, ambitious, and written design for the life you intend to build. Let us first address the great barrier that prevents most people from ever undertaking this work. It is the terror of the blank page. To sit down with a blank piece of paper and be faced with the question, what will I do with my one and only life, is perhaps the most intimidating act a human can perform. It is a confrontation with infinite possibility, and infinite possibility carries with it an immense weight of responsibility. To choose one design is to forsake all others. And so the amateur, the drifter, avoids this confrontation. It is easier, it is safer to accept a pre-made, mediocre blueprint handed to you by the world. The blueprint of following the crowd. The blueprint of meeting the minimum expectations of others. The blueprint of living a sensible and safe life. But a life built from someone else's blueprint can never be your masterpiece. The first great act of courage, then, is to reject these pre-made plans, to face the terrifying freedom of the blank page, and to dare to design a structure that is authentically your own. So, how does the master architect begin? They do not begin by drawing, they begin with a survey. Before you can design a building, you must understand the land upon which you will build. This is the act of profound self-reflection. You must survey the terrain of your past. This is not an invitation to live in regret. It is a professional assessment. Where are the high points on your land, your natural talents, your past successes, the moments you felt most alive? This is the high, solid ground. Where are the low valleys, your past failures, your weaknesses, your recurring struggles? This is the soft ground that will require a deeper foundation. You must know the land. Next, you must discover your true north. An architect orients their building to the sun, to the prevailing winds. You must orient your life's design to your core values. Your values are your personal true north. They are the fixed points on the compass of your soul that will keep you from getting lost. To discover them, ask the deep questions. Ask yourself, what principles would I refuse to sacrifice even for a great prize? Your answer reveals the granite bedrock of your integrity. Ask yourself, what activity, what type of work makes me lose all track of time? Your answer reveals the fertile soil of your passion. Ask yourself, what problem in the world or in my own community makes me righteously angry and inspires a desire to help? Your answer points toward the towering mountain of your purpose and contribution. This survey of your past and your principles is the essential data gathering. Without it, your design will not be grounded in reality. It will be a fantasy castle built on air. With the survey complete, the architect begins to sketch. They begin to give form to the vision. A great life, like a great cathedral, has several distinct but interconnected wings or chambers. You must have a vision for each. This is the art of sketching the 4 great elevations of your life. The first elevation is the wing of being. This is the design for the person you must become. It is the blueprint for your character, your health, and your skills. What virtues will this structure embody? Strength, wisdom, compassion. What level of physical vitality will be required to build and inhabit this great house? What skills must the architect himself master? This is the foundation upon which all other wings are built. The second elevation is the wing of relating. This is the design for the great living spaces of your life. What is your vision for your role as a partner, a parent, a son or daughter, a friend? These are not accidental relationships. They must be designed with intention. How will you show up? What quality of love, of presence, of support will you build into these sacred rooms? The third elevation is the wing of doing. This is the public facade of your cathedral. It is your career, your craft, your contribution to the world. What is the great work you will produce? What is the unique value you will offer? This wing is the monument you build, the tangible result of your skills and your character. It must be a work of excellence. And the fourth elevation is the wing of having. This is the design for your financial and material world. A great construction project requires resources. This is not about greed. It is about stewardship. What are the financial resources required to build this life, to support your family, to fund your contributions? This wing must be designed with the same wisdom and intention as all the others. You now have the sketches for your life, a vision for each of the great wings. But a sketch is still a dream. We must now move from the artist's sketch to the architect's final blueprint. This is the power of the written word. A vision that exists only in your mind is a ghost. It is a vapor that can be dispersed by the first winds of doubt or distraction. The moment you take a pen and write your vision on paper, you perform an act of magic. You transmute the non-physical energy of a thought into a concrete physical reality. A written goal is a declaration. It is a commitment. It has weight. And the language of this blueprint must be precise. An architect's blueprint does not say a nice window over there. It says a 10-foot by 6-foot arched window facing south on the second floor. Your goals must have the same precision. I want to get in shape is a vague wish. I will weigh 180 pounds with 15% body fat by December 31st, 2025. By adhering to a specific nutritional and exercise plan that is the language of a blueprint, it is measurable. It is clear. It has a deadline. And this blueprint must be ambitious. The great tragedy is not to aim high and miss. The great tragedy is to aim low and hit. A small, safe, and sensible blueprint can only ever build a small, safe, and sensible house. A grand, ambitious blueprint, a design for a cathedral, is what pulls you out of your comfort zone. It demands that you become a greater architect. It forces you to grow into the person capable of building it. Do you see now the sacred process of the grand design? It begins with the courage to face the blank page. It proceeds with the honesty to survey the true landscape of your life and your values. It takes form through the vision to sketch out the great wings of your existence. And it becomes real through the discipline of committing it to a clear, ambitious, and written blueprint. The person who completes this process is no longer a drifter. They are no longer a victim of circumstance. They are an architect. They are holding in their hands the most powerful and valuable document of their entire life, a clear plan for a masterpiece. You are now in possession of your grand design. It is a work of beauty, of ambition, and of profound personal clarity. But a blueprint, even the most brilliant one, can be overwhelming. It depicts 1,000 rooms, 1,000,000 details. The architect must now make a crucial decision. They must decide where to begin. They must learn the law of focus. In our last assembly, we undertook the most sacred act of all creation. We stood before the intimidating freedom of the blank page, and we dared to create a grand design. You have surveyed the landscape of your values. You have sketched the great wings of your life's purpose, and you have translated that vision into a clear, ambitious, and written blueprint. You are now in possession of the most valuable document of your life. It is a work of beauty, of ambition, and of profound clarity. You hold in your hands the architectural plans for a cathedral. And in this moment of supreme clarity, a new and dangerous enemy appears. It is a subtle foe, one born not from a lack of vision, but from the very grandeur of it. This enemy is overwhelm. You look at your blueprint and you see 100 magnificent rooms, 1,000 intricate details, 12 soaring towers. And the question that crashes down upon you is a heavy one. Where do I possibly begin? The sheer scale of your own ambition can become a force of paralysis. This is the architect's dilemma. And it is here that the second great law of our creed must be understood and applied. It is the law that separates the master builder from the perpetually overwhelmed amateur. It is the law of focus. Let us first examine the great and tragic mistake of the amateur architect. This is the fallacy of the scattered builder. The amateur, holding their grand blueprint, makes a critical error in judgment. They believe that the way to build a great structure is to work on all parts of it at once. And so, in a flurry of busy and unproductive energy, they begin. They run to the west side of the foundation and lay a single row of bricks. Then, anxious that the east side is being neglected, they race over and pour a little concrete for the main tower. Then, worried about the facade, they begin to frame a single window on the north wall. At the end of the day, they are exhausted. They have been incredibly busy. They have created a great deal of dust and noise. But what have they built? They have built nothing. They stand in a field of rubble, a collection of half-started, disconnected, and weather-beaten projects. It is the illusion of activity, but the reality of stagnation. This is a perfect metaphor for the modern life. The person who, on a Monday, decides to launch a new business. On Tuesday, they commit to getting a six-pack. On Wednesday, they start learning a new language. On Thursday, they decide to master the stock market. At the end of the week, they are exhausted, and they have made no meaningful progress on any front. Their life is a field of rubble. You must understand a fundamental law of power. The light of the sun, when scattered across a vast field, provides a gentle and pleasant warmth. But that same sunlight, when focused through a magnifying glass onto a single tiny point, can generate enough heat to start a fire. Your time, your energy, and your attention are that sunlight. Scattered, they will produce a life of gentle, pleasant, and mediocre warmth. Focused, they can create a breakthrough. They can start a fire that will change everything. So, what is the secret of the master architect? How do they avoid the fallacy of the scattered builder? The master architect knows that you do not build a cathedral by starting with the stained glass windows in the chapel. You do not begin with the gargoyles on the roof. You begin by identifying and constructing the main pillar. In every great structure, there is one central, load-bearing pillar upon which the integrity of everything else depends. Once this massive central pillar is firmly in place, it provides the strength and stability to support the construction of all the other walls, rooms, and towers. To attempt to build the outer walls before the central pillar is in place is to build a structure that is destined to collapse. This is the philosophy of the law of focus. You must examine your grand design, your magnificent blueprint, and you must have the wisdom and the discipline to identify your main pillar for this season of your life. This is your one thing, your major definite purpose. How do you find it? You must ask yourself a series of ruthless, strategic questions. Ask yourself which single goal on my blueprint, if I were to achieve it, would make all the other goals easier or even unnecessary. This is the question that reveals leverage. Ask yourself, which project on this plan simultaneously excites my spirit and terrifies my ego? Excitement is the pull of your potential. Terror is the sign that you are aiming high enough. The main pillar is often found at the intersection of your greatest excitement and your greatest fear. And ask yourself, what is the lead domino? What is the one task that, if you were to push it over, would begin a chain reaction of success that would knock over a dozen other dominoes? Through this inquiry, you will find it. For one person, the main pillar for this year might be their physical health, for they know that without a strong foundation of energy, no other great work is possible. For another, it may be achieving financial stability, for they know that the stress of debt is preventing them from doing their best creative work. For a third, it may be the mastery of a single crucial skill. Once you have identified your main pillar, you must have the courage to make it your obsession. This is the act of giving your year a theme. Is this the year of the body, the year of the business, the year of the book? A theme is a powerful single-word filter for all of life's decisions. What does a life guided by the law of focus look and feel like? First, it is a life of profound simplicity. When you are building one main pillar, your decision-making becomes incredibly easy. When a new opportunity or a new request appears, you no longer have to agonize. You simply ask one question: does this help me build my main pillar, or does it distract me from it? If it helps, you consider it. If it does not, the answer is a swift and guilt-free no. Second, and counterintuitively, it is a life of accelerated progress. By slowing down and focusing on one thing, you actually achieve your grand vision faster. Why? Because you are building on a solid foundation. You are creating momentum. The strength of your main pillar allows you to build the next wing of your cathedral faster and more securely than if you had tried to build them both at once on weak ground. And third, it is a life of peace. The scattered builder is a creature of anxiety. Their mind is constantly jumping between a dozen unfinished projects. They feel perpetually behind on all fronts. But the master architect, who is focused on the single noble work of their main pillar, possesses a calm and powerful energy. Their mind is not scattered, it is converged. Their efforts are not diluted, they are concentrated. This focus brings a profound sense of peace, the peace that comes from knowing you are doing the right thing right now with all of your might. This, then, is the law of focus. It is a law of strategic subtraction. It is the wisdom of choosing the vital few over the trivial many. It is the courage to say no to 100 good ideas so that you can give your life to one great one. It is you, the architect. After reviewing the magnificent complexity of your blueprint, turning to your construction crew, which is yourself, and issuing the first great command of the project. And that command is this: we will not be busy, we will be effective. We will not be scattered, we will be focused. For this season, all our strength, all our resources, and all our will shall be dedicated to raising this one great central pillar. You now have your blueprint, and you have now, with this law, identified the central pillar upon which you will focus all your energy. But even the most focused architect, with the most brilliant blueprint, cannot build without materials. We must now turn our attention to the practical and essential matter of gathering the high-quality resources, both personal and financial, that this great work will demand. We must learn the law of value. In our last assembly, we established the architect's second great law, the law of focus. We have taken our grand design with all its magnificent complexity, and we have identified the main pillar, the one central objective that will provide the structural integrity for everything else. The overwhelm has subsided, replaced by a powerful and singular clarity. You now have the blueprint. You now have the starting point. The vision is clear and the will is focused. But a blueprint is not a building. A focus is not a force. An architect, no matter how brilliant their vision or how intense their focus, cannot build a cathedral from thin air. To transform the vision on the page into a towering reality of stone and steel, the architect must now turn to the practical and profoundly philosophical matter of gathering the materials. This brings us to the third foundational law of our creed, the law of value. This law states that the quality and endurance of your life structure will be in direct proportion to the quality of the materials you use to build it. You cannot build a noble life out of cheap, shoddy, and insufficient material. And in the great construction project of a life, there are two and only two primary categories of building materials. You must become a master of accumulating both. The first is human capital. This is the most important material of all. It is the quality of the architect themselves. It is who you have become. It is your character, your skills, your knowledge, your discipline, and your wisdom. The second is financial capital. This is the stone and steel, the resources you command. It is the money required to fund your grand design, to support your family, and to extend your influence and contribution in the world. The amateur architect makes a fatal error. They chase financial capital while neglecting their human capital. The master architect knows the truth. Financial capital is a direct and unavoidable consequence of high-quality human capital. You do not attract wealth. You grow into the person who is capable of creating and managing it. Let us first, therefore, attend to the primary material, the forging of the master architect. This is the accumulation of your human capital. The first principle is this: the project can never outgrow the architect. You cannot build a grade A life with a grade C mindset. If your vision is a cathedral, you must first become an architect with a cathedral-sized mind. This is the great work of investing in your personal growth. Where do you find the materials for this? You must go to the quarry. The quarry of knowledge is the accumulated wisdom of all of humanity, and its primary entrance is through the pages of a good book. This is the discipline of reading to sharpen your mind. Every great book you read is a block of high-quality marble you are quarrying and adding to your workshop. You are learning from the master builders of history. You are studying their blueprints, their successes, and, most importantly, their failures. The person who does not read is limited to the flawed and narrow architecture of their own experience. The person who reads has access to the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. You must ask yourself a simple question: am I feeding my mind with the cheap sand and gravel of trivial media and fleeting entertainment? Or am I building my inventory with the solid granite of timeless wisdom? But reading alone is not enough. A wise architect seeks an apprenticeship. They find mentors. They find people who have already built the kinds of structures they admire, and they study them. They ask intelligent questions. They learn from the living masters. Humility is the mark of a great student. To believe you can design and build a cathedral entirely on your own is the height of foolishness. Seek out the master builders in your field and learn from them. And as you learn, you must engage in the constant act of sharpening your tools. Your skills are your tools. An architect who does not constantly learn new techniques, new materials, and new design principles will soon find themselves obsolete. Deliberate practice, the conscious effort to improve your craft every single day, is the act of taking your chisels to the whetstone. The world pays extravagantly for skill. It pays poorly for good intentions. You must become a person of immense value, and that value is forged in the fire of daily disciplined skill acquisition. Now, as you diligently work on accumulating your human capital, as you become a wiser and more skillful architect, a natural consequence will begin to occur. You will start to accumulate financial capital. We must have a mature and intelligent philosophy about money. Money is not the goal of the great work. It is not the source of happiness. The cathedral is the goal. The meaning it provides is the source of happiness. Money is simply a building material. It is stone. It is steel. It is a form of stored energy, a tool to be used in the service of your grand design. To despise this material is as foolish as an architect who despises concrete. To worship this material is as foolish as an architect who worships a pile of bricks instead of the cathedral they are meant to build. You must see it for what it is, a powerful and necessary tool, and you must become a master of its accumulation and management. This mastery follows three timeless laws. The first is the law of the harvest. This is the act of earning, and it is directly tied to your human capital. The marketplace pays for value. If you wish to increase your harvest, you must first increase the value you bring. Increase your skill, your discipline, your knowledge, your effectiveness, and your income will have no choice but to follow. You do not wish for a bigger harvest. You become the kind of person who can produce one. The second is the law of the silo. This is the discipline of saving money. A farmer who harvests 100 bushels of corn but eats all 100 during the winter is a fool. For when the spring comes, he will have no seed to plant. He has satisfied his present appetite at the expense of his entire future. The discipline of saving is the act of a wise steward. It is the philosophy of paying yourself first. Before you pay the merchants, before you pay for your comforts, you take a portion of your harvest, 10, 15, 20%, and you put it in your silo. This is the seed for your future. This is the capital for your future projects. To live on less than you make is not an act of deprivation. It is the strategic signature of a master architect planning for a grand future. And third, there is the law of multiplication. This is the discipline of investing. Seed that sits in a silo is safe, but it does not grow. It is mere potential. The ultimate wisdom of the steward is to take the seed from the silo and plant it in a fertile field where it can multiply. This is the magic of compounding. It is the architect's greatest financial ally. Investing is the act of putting your capital to work, of buying assets that grow in value and produce more capital. It is the process that allows a small, consistent act of saving to grow into the fortune required to fund the construction of a cathedral. It requires patience, it requires study, but it is the ultimate law for funding the life you have designed. Do you see now the elegant and powerful logic of this law? The amateur chases money, the master cultivates themselves, the amateur wishes for a raise, the master increases their value, the amateur consumes their entire harvest. The master saves the seed, the amateur lets their seed rot in the silo, the master plants it and watches it multiply. A person with great human capital but no financial capital is a frustrated genius, an architect with brilliant blueprints but no materials to build. A person with great financial capital but no human capital is a wealthy fool. A person with a warehouse full of materials but no vision or skill to create anything of value. The master architect masters both. Their mind is a rich quarry of knowledge and skill, and their treasury is a well-stocked warehouse of materials. They are now finally ready. They have the vision, they have the focus, and now they have the means. The season of planning is over. The architect is skilled. The workshop is stocked with the finest materials. It is now time to leave the comfort of the design studio, to go out onto the plot of land, and to begin the hard, unglamorous, and absolutely essential work of breaking ground. It is time to lay the foundation. In our last assembly, we completed the sacred and essential work of the architect's office. We have forged a grand design, a clear vision for the cathedral of our life. We have learned the law of focus, identifying the main pillar upon which our efforts will be concentrated. And we have studied the law of value, understanding how to accumulate the human and financial capital required for this great work. The planning is complete, the architect is skilled, the workshop is stocked with the finest materials. But a blueprint, no matter how brilliant, has never sheltered a single family from the rain. A warehouse full of materials, no matter how vast, has never by itself risen to touch the sky. The season of preparation is over. We must now leave the comfort of the design studio, walk out onto the plot of land, and confront the hard, unglamorous, and absolutely essential reality of breaking ground. This brings us to the first great law of the construction phase. It is the law upon which the entire physical structure of your life will rest. It is the law of labor. The philosophy is simple, and it is unyielding. You must be willing to work harder for your goals than anyone around you. Let us first address the modern fallacy, the great and comfortable lie of our time, the search for the shortcut. The world is obsessed with hacks. with the easy way, with the secret formula. The amateur architect spends their days searching for a magical technique that will allow them to erect a cathedral with the effort required to build a shack. They are searching for a prize without a price. The master architect knows this is a fool's errand. They know a profound and liberating truth. In the architecture of a noble life, there are no shortcuts. There is only the work. Labor is the great bridge that connects the non-physical world of your vision to the physical world of your reality. Without this bridge, your dreams remain isolated on one side of the chasm, and your life remains on the other. Hard, focused effort is the only way to cross. But we must be clear about what true labor is. This is the crucial distinction between effort and activity. The amateur builder is always busy. Their life is a flurry of activity. They are constantly moving dirt from one pile to another. They are hammering nails into random pieces of wood. They are polishing tools that they never use for difficult work. They are busy, but they are not building. Their activity is a form of procrastination, a way to feel productive without ever engaging in the hard, foundational labor that progress requires. True labor, as defined by the Architect's Code, is different. It is purposeful, focused, and often uncomfortable effort, directed relentlessly towards the blueprint. It is the hard, sweaty, and unglamorous work of digging the trenches for the foundation. It is the back-breaking work of mixing the concrete. It is the meticulous work of laying the first course of stones perfectly level. It is not about looking busy. It is about being productive in the one area that matters most. You will hear people debate, should you work hard or should you work smart? The master architect knows this is a false choice. It is the question of an amateur. The answer is, you must do both. You work smart when you are in the architect's office, creating the blueprint and defining your focus. That is the highest and best use of your intellect. But when you step out onto the construction site, the time for cleverness is over. The time for labor has begun. The smartest blueprint in the world is a worthless piece of paper without the hard physical labor required to implement it. You must have the intelligence to work smart, and you must have the grit and the character to work hard. Now, we must speak of the price. Every great structure has a price tag, and the cathedral of a noble life is the most expensive structure of all. The currency required to build it is not primarily money. The currency is your time, your focus, your energy, and your willingness to sacrifice lesser pleasures for a greater purpose. The amateur architect looks at the price of the cathedral, the long hours, the intense focus, the missed parties, the disciplined lifestyle, and they say, the price is too high. But the master architect performs a different calculation. They understand the price of effort, but then they turn their gaze to the alternative, and they calculate the cost of regret. They understand that the short-term, acute pain of disciplined labor is nothing compared to the long-term, chronic, and gnawing pain of looking back at your life, at your empty plot of land, and knowing that you had the blueprint for a cathedral, but you settled for a shack because you were unwilling to do the work. The cost of regret is always, without exception, higher than the price of discipline. This is why you must be willing to outwork those around you. This is not a philosophy of arrogant comparison. It is a philosophy of realistic assessment. Look around you. Most people are building shacks. Their level of effort is calibrated to the construction of a small, comfortable, and mediocre life. If your ambition, if your blueprint is for a cathedral, then your level of effort must, by definition, be of a different order of magnitude. You cannot build a cathedral with a shack builder's work ethic. Your labor must match your vision, but the law of labor holds within it a beautiful secret. The rewards of the work are far greater than just the structure you build. The labor itself is transformative. The first great reward is that labor forges character. The relentless effort of digging a foundation does more than just create a hole in the ground. It forges the body and the will of the builder. It builds the muscles of resilience and grit. It teaches you that you are stronger than you thought. The stone, in its resistance, reveals your own strength to you. The second reward is that labor builds authentic confidence. Confidence is not a mindset you can simply adopt. It is not a cheap affirmation you repeat in the mirror. Authentic confidence is a result you earn. It is the quiet, internal knowledge that you are a person who does difficult things. It is the byproduct of keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every single day of hard, honest labor is a promise kept. And this, brick by brick, builds a foundation of unshakable self-respect. And the third reward is that labor creates luck. The amateur looks at the master who, after 20 years of relentless effort, wins a great commission, and they call him lucky. But it is not luck. It is the law of the harvest. The master was not lucky. They were ready. For years, they were tilling the soil, planting the seeds, and tending the crops of their skill and their reputation. The great opportunity was the harvest, which is always inevitably preceded by a long season of hard labor. Hard work is the process of putting yourself in the path of so-called luck. And so we stand on the construction site. The vision of the cathedral is clear in your mind. The sun is rising. The great and noble work of your life will not be built by your hopes. It will not be built by your intentions. It will be built by your hands. The law of labor is the first and most fundamental law of all physical creation. It is the decision to get your hands dirty. It is the commitment to fall in love with the work itself, with the rhythm of the hammer, with the noble fatigue that comes from a day well spent. You have now embraced the law of labor. You understand the necessity and the nobility of hard, focused effort. But a single day of great labor, followed by a week of idleness, will build nothing. A foundation is not created in a single, heroic burst of energy. It is laid brick by brick with relentless, unwavering consistency. We must now turn our attention to the great force that transforms labor from a single event into a masterpiece of construction, the law of habit. In our last assembly, we embraced the first great law of the construction phase, the law of labor. We accepted the profound and unyielding truth that a noble life is not built with wishes, but with the sweat of our own effort. We have committed to the hard, unglamorous, and essential work of breaking ground. But the master architect knows a crucial secret that the amateur does not. A cathedral that is built only on the back of heroic, moment-to-moment, white-knuckled effort is a fragile one. Why? Because willpower, the force required for conscious labor, is a finite and exhaustible resource. It is like a strong muscle that inevitably fatigues. What happens on the day the architect feels tired? What happens on the day they feel uninspired? What happens when their personal strength wanes? This is where the second great law of the foundation comes into play. It is the law that transforms effort into elegance. It is the law that ensures the construction continues day in and day out, regardless of your mood. It is the law of habit. A habit is a form of architectural genius. It is the process of taking a difficult, conscious act of labor and, through repetition, transforming it into an easy, unconscious, and automatic rhythm. It is the difference between having to force your construction crew to work every single day and having a crew of master masons who show up on time, know their jobs perfectly, and perform their work flawlessly without your constant supervision. Your life, right now, is being built by your habits. The only question is, have you consciously hired your construction crew, or have you allowed them to be hired by accident and default? We must think of our habits as two distinct crews working on the construction site of our lives. First, there is the crew of the builders. These are your good habits. They are a team of skilled, disciplined, and master craftsmen. The habit of waking up early is the foreman who opens the site on time every single day. The habit of reading is the master mason who meticulously studies the blueprints. The habit of exercise is the engineer who diligently maintains the strength of the scaffolding. They work quietly. They are reliable. And their work, brick by brick, day by day, compounds. But on the same site, there is another crew at work. This is the crew of the demolishers. These are your bad habits. They are a team of subtle and often disguised saboteurs. They do not arrive with a wrecking ball. That would be too obvious. They are far more insidious. The habit of procrastination is the demolisher who quietly forgets to mix the cement correctly, creating a weak point in the foundation. The habit of eating junk food is the one who slowly corrodes the steel reinforcements from within. The habit of mindless scrolling on social media is the one who steals the valuable tools and replaces them with cheap toys. They do not destroy your cathedral in a single day. They weaken it silently, insidiously, brick by brick, until one day, under the first real pressure of a storm, the entire structure collapses. You must understand this. These two crews are at war on the construction side of your life every single day. And you, the chief architect, are the one who signs their paychecks. You are the one who decides which crew gets more work and which crew gets fired. Let us first address the most urgent task. You must fire the demolishers. This is the philosophy of completely cutting out all bad habits. The amateur makes a critical mistake. They attempt to manage their demolishers. They say, I will only allow the demolisher of procrastination to work for an hour a day. This is a fool's strategy. You would not allow a saboteur to work on your construction site for just a little while. Their very presence, their very philosophy compromises the integrity of the entire project. And you cannot simply fire a demolisher and leave a vacancy. That empty position will be quickly filled by another equally destructive habit. The law of nature abhors a vacuum. The only effective strategy is replacement, not just resistance. You must identify the demolisher. Then you must have a skilled builder ready to take their place. For example, when the demolisher of mindless evening television shows up for his shift, you must have the builder of reading one chapter of a great book already waiting at the gate, ready to do the work instead. When the demolisher of the afternoon sugary snack arrives, you have the builder of a short, energetic walk ready to go. You do not fight the bad habit, you replace its job function with a better one. Furthermore, to ensure the demolishers do not return, you must change the environment of the construction site. You must stop providing the things they thrive on. You remove the junk food from the catering tent. You block the distracting websites from the site's internet access. You make the environment hostile to the demolishers and perfectly suited to the builders. Once you have begun the process of firing the destructive crew, you must focus all your energy on hiring, training, and empowering the constructive one. This is the philosophy of building a strong daily routine. This is the most powerful system for creating a masterpiece. Your routine is the architectural process that ensures your builders show up and do their best work every single day. To do this effectively, you must identify your keystone habit. In any great construction crew, there is a foreman. This is the leader, the one whose presence and actions ensure that the rest of the crew performs at a high level. Your keystone habit is your foreman. For most great architects of life, this keystone habit is a powerful and intentional morning routine. The first hour of the day is the rudder of the day. How you spend that first hour determines the direction and quality of the next 16. Your morning routine is your daily site inspection and kickoff meeting. It is where you, the architect, reviews the blueprint, your goals. It is where you assemble and motivate your crew, your mindset. It is where you set the rhythm, the tone for the entire day's construction. And the core of this routine, and all good habits, is the power of the small brick. The amateur stands at the bottom of the foundation trench and is paralyzed by the thought of the millions of bricks that must be laid. The master architect ignores the thought of the millions. Their entire focus is on one thing, laying the next brick perfectly. Your goal is not to build a perfect routine in one day. Your goal is to lay one small brick of a new habit perfectly today. Just one, and then tomorrow to do it again. The magic is not in the size of the brick. The magic is in the relentless, unwavering, day after day consistency of the laying. That is how a foundation is built. That is how a cathedral rises. Consistency is the great secret of the law of habit. Do you see the profound power of this law? The law of labor provides the initial necessary force to get the project started. But the law of habit is what gives that labor its enduring architectural power. By consciously firing the demolishers of your bad habits, and by deliberately hiring and training a crew of master builders through the design of a strong daily routine, you create a system of automatic, unconscious excellence. The construction of your masterpiece ceases to be a constant, draining, moment-to-moment battle of your willpower. It becomes the natural, effortless, and inevitable outcome of the system you have so wisely designed. The cathedral begins to build itself because you have cultivated a culture of mastery on the construction site of your life. You have now embraced the law of labor and mastered the law of habit. Your construction site is becoming a model of efficiency and relentless progress. But even the most disciplined crew, working with the finest materials, can be corrupted if the very ground upon which they build is unstable. We must now turn our attention to the soil of your social world, for a great foundation cannot be laid upon a swamp. We must learn the law of integrity. In our last assembly, we mastered the great law of habit. We have learned to fire the demolishers, our bad habits, and to hire and train a disciplined crew of builders, our good habits, through the power of a daily routine. Your construction site is now a model of efficiency and automatic progress. The work is being done, but the most disciplined crew, with the finest materials and the most brilliant blueprint, cannot build a lasting cathedral on unstable ground. The greatest of all architectural tragedies is a magnificent structure built with immense effort that is destined to collapse because it was built upon a swamp. We now arrive at the final and perhaps most crucial law of the foundation. It is the law that precedes all others in the physical world. It is the architect's first and most consequential choice, the selection of the building site. This is the law of integrity, and it is about the very ground upon which you choose to build your life. The ground in the architecture of your life is your social and emotional environment. It is the collection of people, influences, and energies that you allow to surround your great work. This ground is one of two things. It is either the solid, unyielding bedrock of support, high standards, and positivity, or it is the soft, toxic, and unstable swamp of negativity, mediocrity, and doubt. Before you lay a single brick of your future, you must have the courage to honestly assess the ground beneath your feet. Let us first, with unflinching clarity, identify the characteristics of the swamp of toxicity. You must learn to recognize this dangerous ground, for it is often disguised as a comfortable and familiar place. What is a swamp? First, it has a poisoned water table. This is the undercurrent of constant negativity, of gossip, of cynicism, and of complaint. When you spend your time in this environment, you are inevitably drinking this poisoned water. It slowly seeps into your own mindset, poisoning your optimism, killing your enthusiasm, and turning the fertile soil of your mind acidic and barren. Second, a swamp is made of shifting sands. This is the quality of unreliability and conditional support. The inhabitants of the swamp may cheer for you when you are building a small, unassuming structure like their own. But the moment you begin to dig the deep foundations for a cathedral, the moment your ambition begins to outpace theirs, the ground shifts. They offer doubt instead of encouragement. They offer jealousy instead of celebration. You cannot build a tall structure on the shifting sands of unreliable and envious associations. Third, a swamp is full of leeches of energy. These are the drainers, the people who only take from your construction site your time, your positive energy, your focus without ever contributing. They come with their problems, their dramas, their endless needs, and they drain the vitality of the architect, leaving you with less energy for your own great work. And finally, and perhaps most dangerously, the swamp is covered in the thick, wet mists of mediocrity. These are not necessarily malicious people. They are often the people who love you, but they are comfortable. They have built their own small, safe shacks in the swamp, and your ambition to build a cathedral makes them uncomfortable. They will try to pull you down, not out of hatred, but out of a misguided form of love. They will offer you the sensible advice. Don't work so hard. Don't aim so high. Be realistic. Their advice is a wet blanket designed to extinguish the fire of your ambition and bring you back down to the safe, comfortable, and mediocre level of the swamp. To build your life on this ground is to guarantee that your foundation will crack, your confidence will erode, your ambition will suffocate, and your magnificent cathedral will sink into the mud. Now let us turn our gaze to the alternative. Let us speak of bedrock. This is the philosophy of deliberate association. The master architect does not build wherever they happen to find themselves. They engage in a long and meticulous search for solid ground. You must be just as deliberate and just as ruthless in choosing the ground for your life. You must seek out bedrock. What are the qualities of this bedrock? It is defined by the character of the people who inhabit it. I will give you a simple framework, the 5 A's of a bedrock association, to guide your survey. The first is ambition. You must surround yourself with people who are also building their own cathedral. People who understand and respect the struggle, the discipline, and the vision required for a great work. They will not be threatened by your ambition. They will be inspired by it. The second is accountability. Bedrock individuals are those who take full responsibility for their own lives. They do not live in a world of blame and excuses. They are architects of their own, not victims of circumstance. Their mindset of ownership is contagious. The third is authenticity. You must build your life among people whose word is their bond, whose character is solid and true, people of integrity. There is no shifting sand here. You can trust them, and they can trust you. The fourth is affirmation with honesty. These are the people who support and encourage you, who cheer for your progress. But they are not mere sycophants. They are also the ones who have the courage and the respect to tell you the truth when you are off course, when your work is sloppy, when you are not living up to your own blueprint. They offer the affirmation that fuels you and the honesty that corrects you. And the fifth is altitude. You must seek out people who operate at a higher altitude of thought, people who discuss ideas and possibilities, not just other people and their problems. People who elevate your thinking and expand your vision of what is possible. This is bedrock, and it is upon this solid ground that a great life can be built. You must understand the great law of averages, a law of social physics that is as real as the law of gravity. You will inevitably become the average of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. Their standards, their habits, their beliefs, and their expectations will seep into your soul. Choose your 5 as if your entire future depends on it, because it does. So, what does this mean in practical terms? It means you must engage in the painful excavation. If you discover that you have, in fact, been building on a swamp, you cannot simply wish the ground to be different. An architect who finds a patch of soft, unstable soil before laying the foundation must make a hard, professional choice. They must bring in the heavy equipment and they must excavate it. This is not an act of cruelty. It is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of structural necessity. This excavation can take 2 forms. For those relationships that are not malicious, but are merely mired in the mists of mediocrity, perhaps even family or old friends, the strategy is one of limited association. You can love them, you can wish them well, but you must limit your exposure. You cannot spend the majority of your time in their swamp and hope to maintain the mindset of a master architect. You must love them from a distance while you spend your time building on bedrock. For those relationships that are truly toxic, that are actively poisoning your water table and undermining your work, a more drastic action is required. You must perform a complete amputation. You must, with courage and self-respect, remove them from your construction site entirely. This will be painful, but it is the choice between the short-term pain of a difficult conversation and the long-term chronic pain of a collapsed life. You must choose the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. This, then, is the law of integrity. It is the wisdom to understand that you are the product of your environment. It is the courage to excavate the unstable swamp of negativity and mediocrity from your life. And it is the deliberate, strategic choice to build your life's foundation only upon the solid bedrock of ambitious, accountable, and authentic human beings. When you master this law, the foundation you lay will be unshakable. The structure of your life will be stable. It will be supported not just by your own effort, but by the very ground upon which you stand. You will be free from the constant, draining work of trying to shore up a cathedral built on mud. The unseen work is now complete. The blueprint is clear, the construction crew of your habits is disciplined and ready, and the very ground upon which you build is solid and true. It is now time to begin the visible work. It is time to raise the walls of character. And so, the unseen work is complete. The blueprint is clear. The construction crew of your habits is disciplined, and the very ground upon which you build is solid and true. The foundation of your noble life is now secure. Before we begin the visible work of raising the walls of character, I invite you to make a formal commitment to this great project. You can do so by subscribing to this channel. Consider it the act of signing your name to the blueprint, a quiet declaration to yourself and to the world that you are not just a dreamer, but a builder. Let us continue this journey of mastery together. Now, it is time to raise the walls. In our last assembly, we completed the great unseen work. We have laid the foundation for our cathedral upon the solid bedrock of integrity. The blueprint is clear. The construction crew of our habits is disciplined. The ground is stable and true. But a foundation, no matter how strong, provides no shelter from the wind. It offers no view of the horizon. The time for the unseen work is over. It is now time for the visible and often difficult work to begin. It is time to raise the walls. The walls of the great structure of your life are your character. And character, like a wall of solid stone, is not built on easy days. It is not assembled from materials of comfort and convenience. It is built by the deliberate, day-by-day act of lifting heavy stones. This brings us to the first great law of the construction phase, the law of deliberate discomfort. Pause, establishing the central theme of chosen struggle. This law states that the strength of your character, the height of your achievements, and the resilience of your spirit will be in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort you are willing to deliberately and intelligently seek out and overcome. At every moment of the construction process, the architect is faced with a choice. There is the easy path, and there is the path of growth. You can choose the light, hollow bricks of comfort, or you can choose the heavy, solid stones of character. Most people spend their entire lives choosing the easy bricks. Let us first, with unflinching honesty, examine the great deception of our modern world. Let us dissect the nature of the comfort zone. We have been taught to see comfort as the ultimate prize. The goal of life, we are told, is to arrive at a place of ease, of safety, of predictability. The comfort zone is portrayed as a beautiful, warm, and gilded cage. And it is indeed beautiful. But it is and always will be a cage. The amateur architect's primary goal is to build and expand this cage. They seek to eliminate all friction, all challenge, all risk, all difficulty from their lives. They build a life that is smooth, predictable, and devoid of all resistance. But here we must understand the great and tragic paradox of comfort. A life dedicated to the relentless pursuit of comfort will inevitably lead to a state of profound and brittle weakness. The person who has only ever lived within the four walls of their comfort zone has no resilience. Their character has no tensile strength. And so when the inevitable and unavoidable storms of life arrive, and they will arrive, the person who has only ever known comfort is the first to be shattered. The shack they have built from the flimsy materials of ease is the first to be blown down. The relentless avoidance of small, chosen discomforts makes you utterly incapable of handling the large, unchosen ones. The gilded cage of comfort is a death trap in disguise. The master architect, therefore, has a completely different philosophy. They do not seek to avoid resistance. They understand that resistance is the very thing that creates strength. A wall is not made strong by the absence of weight, but by the immense weight it is designed to bear. The master, therefore, learns to distinguish between two kinds of pain in life. This is one of the most important distinctions a human being can ever make. First, there is the pain of discipline. This is the good pain. This is the discomfort you choose. It is the burn in your muscles as you lift a heavy stone to set it in the wall. It is the mental frustration of learning a new and complex architectural technique. It is the emotional nervousness before a difficult but necessary conversation. This pain is an investment. It is always temporary, and it always pays a dividend. And that dividend is always the same: strength. Then there is the second type of pain. This is the pain of regret. This is the bad pain. This is the pain you are delivered when you consistently avoid the pain of discipline. It is the dull, chronic, and lifelong ache of a weak and undeveloped character. It is the pain of looking at your half-built walls and knowing you could have built a cathedral. It is the pain of being shattered by a storm that a stronger structure would have easily withstood. You must understand this profound truth. The choice is not whether to have pain in your life. The choice is which kind of pain you will have. You will either choose the sharp, temporary, and productive pain of discipline, or you will, by default, be delivered the dull, permanent, and destructive pain of regret. The master architect chooses the pain of discipline every single time. This is the philosophy of deliberate discomfort. It is the art of challenging yourself with one difficult task daily. It is the discipline of stepping out of your comfort zone as a matter of principle. The feeling of discomfort, of resistance, of fear is not a signal to stop. For the master architect, it is a compass. It is a compass pointing directly to the work that must be done. The task you are procrastinating on the most, the conversation you are avoiding, the skill that intimidates you, that is your compass pointing to your next area of growth, that is your heavy stone for the day. So how does one practice this law? It is through the principle of the one daily stone. Your goal is not to build the entire cathedral in a single day. That is the path to burnout. Your goal is simple, humble, and achievable. Every single day you must lift and set one heavy stone. A heavy stone is any task that you would rather not do, but that you know will make you stronger. It is a task that lies just outside the edge of your current comfort zone. It does not have to be a boulder. It just has to be heavy enough to make you strain, to make you grow. Let us look at the different walls of your life and the stones required to build them. To build the wall of health, the heavy stone might be the workout you don't feel like doing. It might be the discipline of choosing the healthy meal over the easy and tempting junk food. To build the wall of knowledge, the heavy stone might be reading a chapter of a difficult, challenging book instead of a light and easy one. It might be the frustrating but necessary practice of a new skill. To build the wall of courage, the heavy stone is almost always a difficult conversation. It is making the sales call you've been dreading. It is speaking up with your honest opinion in a meeting. It is giving necessary but uncomfortable feedback to a person you care about. The crucial thing to understand is this: in the practice of the one daily stone, the immediate outcome of the task is less important than the act of having performed it. You are not just building a wall of stone, you are building a muscle of will. Every time you choose the difficult path, you are performing a repetition for your discomfort muscle. The more you train this muscle, the stronger it gets. And a person with strong discomfort muscles can bear the weight of any challenge. What is the result of a life lived by this law? What does the architect who embraces deliberate discomfort become? They do not necessarily live an easier life, but they become so much stronger that life feels easier. The challenges that would crush the amateur are, to the master, just another day's work, another stone to be lifted. They become anti-fragile. This is a profound concept. The fragile person is broken by stress. The resilient person endures stress. But the anti-fragile person thrives on stress. Like a muscle that grows back stronger after being torn, the architect who lives by this law is strengthened by the pressures and storms of life. The challenges do not weaken their structure, they reinforce it. And so the walls of their character begin to rise. They are not hollow walls of drywall and pretense. They are thick, solid walls of granite, built from the compounded weight of 1,000 days of difficult, deliberate, and courageous work. You have now embraced the law of deliberate discomfort. You are no longer building with the straw of convenience, but with the solid stone of character. You are raising the very walls of your life day by day. But a strong wall will inevitably be tested. A great structure will face great storms. We must now turn our attention to the law that ensures your magnificent structure will endure. We must learn the law of resilience. In our last assembly, we embraced the great law of deliberate discomfort. We made a conscious choice to build the walls of our character not with the hollow bricks of convenience, but with the heavy, solid stones of challenge. You are now engaged in the difficult and noble work of raising those walls. But the second great law of construction is this: every great structure will face a great storm. A wall that has never been tested by the wind and the rain cannot truly be called strong. It is only a theory of strength. Life, in its infinite wisdom, will send the storms. It will send the winds of setback, the driving rains of failure, the lightning strikes of unexpected crisis. These storms are not a sign that you are on the wrong path. They are a sign that you are building something significant enough for the universe to test its integrity. The amateur architect, whose shack is built on a weak foundation with cheap materials, is destroyed by the first storm. They curse the weather and abandon the construction site. But the master architect expects the storms. They do not welcome them, but they do not fear them. They see the storm not as a catastrophe, but as the ultimate and most honest test of their design, their materials, and their character. This brings us to the next law of our creed, the philosophy that ensures your structure will endure. This is the law of resilience. The law of resilience is about the architect's unwavering will in the face of adversity. It is composed of two great commitments: the commitment to never settle until you reach your best, and the absolute, non-negotiable vow to never give up on your biggest dreams. To understand this law, we must first dissect the anatomy of surrender. Why do people quit? Why do they abandon their beautiful blueprints and leave their cathedrals half-finished? Surrender typically takes two forms. The first and most subtle is the seduction of good enough. This is the philosophy of settling. As you build, you will reach a certain height. The walls are up, a roof is on, it is a respectable structure. It is better than the shacks of those around you. And in this moment, a comforting and deeply dangerous voice will begin to whisper, "You have worked so hard," it says, "look at what you have built. This is good. This is enough. Why risk what you have already accomplished by aiming for the heavens? The rest of the journey to the great spire is the most difficult part. It is windy up there. It is dangerous. Stay here. It is safe here. It is good enough." This is the siren song of mediocrity. To settle is to betray the original blueprint. It is to look at the grand design for a cathedral and make the conscious choice to finish it as a cottage. Because you have grown tired of climbing the scaffolding, it is a quiet form of quitting, a surrender dressed in the robes of practicality. The second form of surrender is more dramatic. It is the despair of the setback. This is the philosophy of giving up. This voice appears after the great storm has passed. A wall has collapsed. A key support has failed. The construction site is a mess of mud and broken materials. And in this moment of devastation, the voice of despair emerges. You see, it hisses. It was impossible from the start. Your vision was a fantasy. The storm has proven it. You are not a master architect. You are a foolish dreamer. It is time to abandon this cursed ground. Both settling and giving up, the quiet surrender and the dramatic one, stem from the same root cause, a temporary loss of connection to the why. When the immediate, sharp pain of the present construction becomes greater than the clear, inspiring vision of the future cathedral, the will of the architect breaks. The master architect, therefore, is a master of maintaining this connection. The law of resilience is a philosophy of unwavering resolve built upon three powerful principles. The first principle is the reconnection with the blueprint. The first and most critical act when you are tempted to settle or feel the despair of giving up is to walk back into the design studio. You must unroll the original blueprint. You must look, once again, at the magnificent cathedral you vowed to build. You must remember why you started this arduous journey. Reconnect with the emotion, the passion, the ambition that led you to draw that first line. The why is the ultimate fuel for the how. The clarity of your vision is the only thing that can overcome the pain of your present circumstances. The architect who loses sight of the blueprint will always get lost in the mud of the construction site. The architect who keeps the blueprint in their heart can endure any storm. The second principle is the power of anti-fragility. This is the art of learning from the storms. A resilient structure is not one that is untouched by the storm. A resilient structure is one that is made stronger by it. The master architect does not curse the storm in a strange way. They thank it. Why? Because the storm provides a free and brutally honest structural analysis of their work. The storm reveals the hidden weaknesses. It shows you exactly where your foundation needs to be reinforced, where your walls need to be thicker, where your design was flawed. The amateur is crushed by this feedback. The master is educated by it. They study the damage not as a failure, but as a lesson, and they rebuild not just as it was before, but with greater wisdom and stronger materials. They turn a setback into a setup for a more enduring future. You must adopt this philosophy. Every failure, every setback, every criticism is a storm. Do not let it defeat you. Let it teach you. Ask, what is this storm revealing about the weakness in my approach? What is the lesson here? A life built with this mindset is not just resilient, it is anti-fragile. The challenges do not just fail to break it, they actively make it stronger. And the third principle is the patience of the cathedral builder. We live in an age of impatience. We want instant results. But a cathedral is not built in a day. The master architect who lays the first stone for a great cathedral often knows that they will not live to see the final spire placed upon the tower. Their commitment is not to the immediate reward of seeing the finished product. Their commitment is to the integrity of the work itself. Their reward is the knowledge that they are a part of something great, something that will endure. You must cultivate this long-term perspective. Your greatest dreams will not be realized in a week or a month. They may take a decade. They may take a lifetime. You must fall in love with the process, not just the prize. You must find joy in the daily act of laying one brick perfectly, of solving one small architectural problem, of showing up and honoring your blueprint. This patience is the antidote to the temptation to settle for a lesser structure because it is faster to build. So, how does the resilient architect act on a daily basis, especially after a setback? They practice the philosophy of the next right action. When the storm has passed and the construction site is a scene of chaos, the amateur is paralyzed by the sheer scale of the mess. The master architect does not focus on the entire disaster. They ask one simple, powerful question. What is the single next right action I can take to begin the cleanup? They do not think about rebuilding the entire wall. They simply pick up one fallen brick, then another. This relentless focus on the immediate, the small, and the controllable is the practical engine of resilience. It is what allows you to start moving again when you are frozen by overwhelm. And as they work, they celebrate endurance. The master architect doesn't just celebrate the completion of a tower. They celebrate the fact that they and their crew showed up and worked through a week of bitter rain. You must acknowledge and honor your own grit. To survive a storm is itself a victory worthy of celebration. It reinforces your identity as a person who does not quit. This, then, is the law of resilience. It is the unwavering will of the architect, fueled by a constant connection to their vision. It is the intelligent artistry that turns the damage of a storm into a stronger design, and it is the profound patience of the cathedral builder who is in love with the great work itself. The structure that is built by such an architect is a thing of awesome power. It is not a pristine, untouched building that has never seen a gray day. It is a fortress. Its stones are weathered. It wears the honorable scars of the storms it has endured. It tells a story not of ease, but of endurance. It has character, and it stands unshakable for centuries. And the architect himself has been transformed. They are no longer just a designer. They are a seasoned, storm-tested veteran. They possess a quiet, unshakable confidence that can only be earned in the heart of the storm. You have now learned to raise the walls of character and to ensure they can withstand any storm. Your structure is strong. It is resilient. But even the strongest structure can be undermined from within by the subtle thieves of distraction and the slow decay of poor logistics. We must now turn our attention to the law that protects the integrity of the daily work. We must learn the law of the guardian. In our last assembly, we embraced the great law of resilience. We have learned that the architect's will must be as strong as the storms they will inevitably face. You have raised the walls of your character, and you have fortified them with the wisdom gained from adversity. Your structure is now strong. It is resilient. But a strong structure left unguarded can still be undermined. It can be eroded, not by a great and sudden storm, but by 1,000 tiny, insignificant intrusions. It can be weakened not by a catastrophic collapse, but by the slow, silent decay of poor logistics and wasted resources. This brings us to the final law of the construction phase. It is the philosophy that protects the integrity of the daily work. It is the law of the guardian. A master architect is not only a designer and a builder, they are also the chief guardian of the construction site. Your day, your working hours, your focused mind, this is a valuable and sacred construction site. It is the ground where your blueprint is being made real. It is a place of immense value, and like all valuable places, it is a target for thieves and a victim of waste if not properly managed. The law of the guardian is a philosophy of profound respect for your own creative process. It entails two sacred duties. First, you must guard the gates of your site against the thieves of attention. This is the art of saying no to distractions. Second, you must manage the resources within the walls with maximum efficiency. This is the art of mastering your time. Let us first address the constant threat of the thieves. This is the philosophy of guarding the gates. The thieves of attention are the distractions that bombard our modern world, and we must see them for what they are. They are not harmless. They do not look like dangerous villains. They arrive disguised as a quick question, a 5-minute break on social media, a harmless notification buzzing on your phone. But the master architect is not fooled by their disguises. They know that a distraction is a cunning thief, and the cost of this theft is far greater than the few minutes it appears to take. This is a critical concept you must understand. It is the concept of attention residue. When a thief enters your construction site, it is not just the 5 minutes you spend dealing with them that is lost. It is the 20 minutes of lost momentum and broken concentration that follows. The architect's mind, once in a state of deep, focused work, has been pulled to the surface to deal with a triviality. To descend again into the depths of creative thought requires immense and precious energy. A single, harmless distraction can poison an entire hour of productive work. Therefore, the architect must become the head of security for their own construction site. They must design a ruthless and effective security system. This system begins with the outer wall. This is your environment. You must make your physical and digital spaces hostile to thieves. The simple, powerful act of placing your phone in another room while you work is the act of locking the main gate of your fortress. A clean desk with only the tools for the current task is the act of clearing the courtyard of potential hiding places for thieves. Next, you must post the inner guard. This is your will, your discipline. This is the trained sentry in your own mind that has been given one clear command: to refuse entry to any thought, impulse, or urge that is not aligned with the task at hand. It is the part of you that recognizes the itch to check email as the thief it is and says, with quiet authority, "Not now, we are working." And finally, you must establish posted hours. A professional construction site has clear operating hours. Your day must have the same. You must schedule blocks of time for deep, focused work, your construction hours. During these sacred hours, the gates are locked. The guards are on high alert. Only the most urgent and important messages get through. The rest must wait. To be always available is to be perpetually distracted. The guardian knows that their most valuable work requires them to be, for a time, unavailable. Now, it is not enough to simply keep thieves out. A guardian must also prevent waste and chaos from within. This brings us to the second great duty, managing the resources on site. This is the philosophy of time management, the art of stewarding the currency of creation. You must reframe your understanding of time. It is not merely a clock on the ticking on the wall. Time is the finite, non-renewable supply of stone and steel you have been given to build your entire life's cathedral. Every hour is a block of precious marble. To waste it on unproductive activity, to squander it through poor planning, is not just inefficient, it is a form of architectural sacrilege. The amateur architect treats their supply of time like a leaky bucket. They let it drip away, second by second, on trivialities, on indecision, on disorganization, and they are shocked at the end of the day to find their bucket is empty with little to show for it. The master architect treats their time like a well-managed warehouse. They are a brilliant logistician. They account for every single block of stone. This mastery is built on 3 core practices. The first practice is the daily blueprint. A master architect would never arrive at the construction site and ask the crew, "So, what should we work on today?" That is the path to chaos. The night before, or first thing in the morning, the architect reviews the grand design and creates a clear, simple daily work order. They identify the 2 to 3 most critical tasks that will advance the project. This plan, this daily blueprint, eliminates the single greatest thief of time: indecision. The second practice is the law of the big rocks. Imagine you have a large glass jar, a pile of big rocks, and a pile of small pebbles. If you fill the jar with the pebbles first, you will not be able to fit in the big rocks. But if you place the big rocks in first, the pebbles can then fill in all the empty spaces around them. The jar is your day. The big rocks are your most important high-leverage task, the work that truly raises the walls of your cathedral. The pebbles are the small, urgent, but less important tasks. The emails, the administrative work, the minor requests. The amateur fills their day with pebbles and then complains they have no time for the great work. The master architect, guided by their daily blueprint, places the big rocks of their most important tasks into their schedule first. They give the best hours of their day, their peak energy, to the work that matters most. The pebbles can wait. And the third practice is the principle of the lever. A wise architect is always looking for the point of maximum leverage. They ask, which single action, which task will create the greatest forward momentum for the entire project? This is the art of identifying your highest value work. Often, 20% of your efforts will produce 80% of your results. The master architect is obsessed with identifying and executing that critical 20%. They do not confuse activity with accomplishment. They focus on impact. Do you see now the twin duties of the guardian? They are inseparable. Guarding the gates against the thieves of distraction is useless if the valuable materials inside the walls are being squandered through poor management. And managing your materials with perfect efficiency is useless if thieves can constantly halt the work and break your momentum. The architect who masters this law of the guardian creates a construction site that is a fortress of focus and a model of serene productivity. Every hour is invested with purpose. Every action is aligned with the blueprint. Progress is not a matter of chance or luck. It is the natural, inevitable result of a well-protected and well-managed process. You have now raised the strong and resilient walls of your character, and with this law, you have learned to protect the sacred work of their construction. The physical form of your great structure is nearing completion. Its strength is assured. Its progress is efficient. But a cathedral is more than just perfectly laid stone and mortar. A life is more than just a series of accomplishments. The greatest structures, the ones that endure for centuries, all possess an intangible quality. They have a soul. We must now turn our attention to the final and most important phase of the work, filling the magnificent structure you have built with a living spirit. We must learn the art of inhabitation. In our last assembly, we mastered the laws of construction. We have raised the walls of character through deliberate discomfort. We have forged a resilient will, capable of withstanding any storm. And we have learned the law of the guardian, protecting our sacred work from the thieves of distraction and the waste of poor logistics. The structure is now complete. It stands before you, a magnificent testament to your vision, your discipline, and your strength. It is a cathedral of accomplishment. But a cathedral, however grand, with nothing inside it, is not a place of worship. It is a cold and empty echo chamber. A life, however successful on the outside, with no inner world of thought, of wisdom, of reflection, is a hollow victory. The amateur architect finishes the building and immediately moves on, thinking the work is done. They focus only on the external structure of success, the titles, the income, the possessions, and they neglect to furnish the interior. The result is an empty palace, a life that looks impressive from a distance, but feels barren and desolate from within. This brings us to the final and most meaningful phase of our work, the art of inhabitation. And the first and most critical act of inhabitation is to furnish the great halls of your mind. This is the law of the mind. The law of the mind is built on a single, profound philosophy. You must furnish the magnificent structure you have built with the timeless treasures of human wisdom. And the primary vehicle for this is the simple, sacred act of reading books that sharpen your mind. Let us not treat this subject lightly. In our modern world of fleeting information and constant entertainment, the act of sitting quietly with a great book has become a revolutionary act. It is an act of defiance against the culture of the superficial. You must first understand what a book truly is. A book is not merely paper and ink. A great book is a distilled human life. Think of it. An author may have spent 20, 30, or even 50 years of struggle, of research, of failure, and of insight to learn a single profound lesson. And they have taken this lifetime of experience and have condensed it into a form that you can absorb in a matter of hours. To choose not to read is to make one of the most arrogant statements a person can make. It is to say that your own limited personal experience is a better guide for your future than the combined, distilled wisdom of the greatest minds in all of human history. It is to insist on making every single mistake for yourself. The master architect understands that this is an act of profound foolishness. The fastest way to build a great life is to learn from those who have already built one. Reading is the act of entering into the great conversation. It is the miracle of inviting Plato, of inviting Seneca, of inviting Shakespeare, of inviting the great architects of industry, of philosophy, of character, to sit with you in your own home and to be your personal, private mentors. Their only price of admission is your focused attention. Therefore, the act of reading is both an act of profound humility and an act of profound ambition. It is humble because it is the admission that you do not have all the answers. It is ambitious because it is the declaration that you are serious enough about your life to seek out the very best counsel available. But what does it mean to read books that sharpen your mind? Not all reading is created equal. The architect must be a deliberate curator of their own library. There are two primary categories of books that must be on your shelves. The first category is reading for skill. These are the architect's manuals. These are the books that teach you the how of your craft. Whatever your chosen field, whatever the central pillar of your grand design, there are people who have mastered it. You have a duty to study their techniques, their strategies, their methods. To neglect the manuals of your own profession is a form of malpractice. This is the reading that hones your skills and makes you more effective and valuable in the marketplace. But a life built only on skill is a life of a technician, not a master architect. The second and more important category is reading for wisdom. These are the great books. These are the books that teach you not how to do, but how to be. This is the realm of philosophy, of deep history, of great literature, of timeless spiritual texts. These books do not teach you how to build a better mousetrap. They teach you about the nature of the mouse, the nature of the trapper, and the nature of the universe in which they both exist. They explore the great enduring questions of a well-lived life. What is virtue? What is courage? What is justice? What is the meaning of success? What is the nature of a good life? Reading for skill builds your competence. Reading for wisdom builds your character. The manuals build your building. The great books furnish your soul. You must have both. Now that you know what to read, we must discuss how to read. For the master architect does not read in the same way as the casual tourist. This is the art of active reading. The amateur reads passively. They let the words wash over them for entertainment. The master reads actively. They come to the book not as a spectator, but as a participant in a dialogue. They read with a chisel in their hand. Your pen is your chisel. A great book should not be a pristine object on your shelf. It should be a well-worn tool. It should be filled with your underlines, your notes in the margins, your questions, your arguments. To read with a pen in your hand is to transform the act from consumption to creation. You are not just receiving the author's ideas, you are engaging with them, wrestling with them, and integrating them into the very architecture of your own mind. Furthermore, you must abandon the vanity of the modern reader. The goal is not to see how many books you can get through. The goal is to see how many great books can get through to you. The amateur boasts of reading 100 books a year. The master may read only 10, but they have allowed those 10 books to fundamentally change them. One great book, read deeply, reflected upon, and integrated into your life, is infinitely more valuable than 100 books superficially scanned to be checked off a list. And this leads to the final and most crucial part part of the art, the law of application. Knowledge that is not applied is a dead thing. It is a beautiful piece of furniture locked away in a dark, unused room of the cathedral. It is a treasure that is hoarded, not invested. After you finish a chapter of a great book, you must put it down and you must ask the architect's ultimate question. How will this new wisdom change the way I lay the next stone in my cathedral tomorrow? Will it change the way you communicate with your family? Will it change the way you manage your finances? Will it change the way you respond to adversity? Knowledge does not become wisdom until it is embodied in action. Your library is not a museum of static ideas. It is a dynamic workshop of tools to be used in the daily construction of your life. What, then, is the result of a life lived by this law of the mind? The architect who practices this philosophy has built a mind that is not an empty echo chamber. It is a richly furnished, magnificent, and ever-expanding royal library. When they face a new challenge, a new and difficult design problem, they are never alone. They do not have to rely only on their own limited experience. They can walk the silent, towering halls of their own mind and pull down from the shelves the wisdom of the ages. They can consult with the greatest counselors who ever lived. This richly furnished mind is what gives their life its depth, its texture, its nuance, its creativity, and its enduring wisdom. It is what transforms the structure they have built from a mere building into a place of light and meaning. You have now built a magnificent structure, and with this law, you have begun the sacred work of filling its great library with the timeless wisdom of the ages. The mind is furnished, the intellect is sharp, but a library, no matter how grand, can be a cold and lonely place. There is one final element required to turn this magnificent house into a warm, vibrant, and joyful home. We must now learn how to switch on the lights. We must learn the law of the Spirit. In our last assembly, we completed the great intellectual work of the architect. We learned the law of the mind. We committed to furnishing the magnificent structure we have built with the timeless wisdom of the ages, transforming our mind into a great royal library. The intellect is sharp, the mind is furnished. And yet, it is possible to stand in the most grand and beautiful library in the world, surrounded by all the wisdom of history, and still feel a profound and chilling emptiness. It is possible to build a cathedral that is structurally perfect, architecturally brilliant, and yet is nothing more than a cold and silent tomb of accomplishment. This brings us to the final and most vital act of creation. It is the act that transforms a building into a home. It is the act that transforms a life of success into a life of fulfillment. This is the art of inhabitation. This is the law of the Spirit. The law of the Spirit is built upon a single, powerful, and often misunderstood virtue: gratitude. Let us be clear. When I speak of gratitude, I am not speaking of the polite and often hollow act of saying thank you. I am not speaking of a naive or childish optimism that pretends problems do not exist. Gratitude is not a denial of the storms you have weathered or the flaws in the stone. Gratitude, in the architect's creed, is a profound form of perception. It is a deliberate and disciplined way of seeing the world. It is the art of turning on the lights inside the cathedral you have so painstakingly built. You must understand that the human mind, by default, is an instrument of deficit. It is a magnificent tool for survival and ambition. It is designed to look at a situation and immediately identify what is wrong, what is missing, what is dangerous, what needs to be improved. This is the mind of the architect during the construction phase. It is a mind that is always seeking the flaw, the problem, the next challenge. But if you live your entire life with this deficit-oriented mind, you will fall into the architect's paradox, the tragic state of the unhappy superachiever. This is the architect who has built a magnificent cathedral but can find no joy in it. Why? Because their mind, so expertly trained to find flaws, can only see the one window that is slightly misaligned, the one stone that is a shade off color, the one spire that is not as tall as their neighbors. They live in a masterpiece, but they experience only its imperfections. Their life is a catalog of unmet expectations. Gratitude is the conscious act of shifting your perception from a state of deficit to a state of abundance. It is the discipline of acknowledging the gap between what you have and what you want, but choosing to focus your emotional energy on the magnificence of what is already built. Let us imagine our two architects. The deficit architect stands before their nearly finished work and feels only anxiety. They are tormented by the small section that is not yet complete. The 99% of the cathedral that is standing strong and beautiful is invisible to them. But the abundance architect, the one who practices the law of the Spirit, stands before the very same structure and is filled with a sense of profound awe. They are aware of the work that remains, but they are overwhelmed by the miracle of what has already been accomplished. They feel a deep appreciation for the solid foundation, for the true walls, for the light that streams through the 99% of the windows that are perfect. Both architects face the same reality, but they live in entirely different worlds. One lives in a world of perpetual lack. The other lives in a world of profound abundance. Gratitude is the lens that determines which world you inhabit. So how does one cultivate this way of seeing? How do you practice this law and turn on the lights in your own cathedral? The practice is a form of daily illumination. It is the architect's sacred ritual of walking through the great halls of their own life at the beginning or the end of each day and consciously acknowledging the good. This practice can be structured into 3 levels of increasing depth and power. The first level is gratitude for the what. This is the foundation. This is gratitude for the tangible, for the possessions, for the circumstances. You start by acknowledging the simple gifts. The roof over your head, your home, your sanctuary, the food on your table, the nourishment that fuels your work, the tools in your workshop, the resources at your disposal, the very health in your body, the magnificent living structure that houses your spirit. To begin here is to ground yourself in the reality of the abundance that already surrounds you, an abundance that so many in the world can only dream of. The second and deeper level is gratitude for the who. A cathedral is not built by a single hand. You must walk through the great halls of your memory and acknowledge the people who have contributed to your structure, the mentors who gave you a blueprint, the parents who laid your first foundation, the friends who supported you through the storms, the partners who labored alongside you. To practice gratitude for the who is to cultivate humility. It is to recognize that your success is not entirely your own. It is to honor the network of relationships and support that makes your great work possible. This form of gratitude fills the rooms of your cathedral with the warm light of love and connection. And this leads to the third and highest level of gratitude. This is the mark of the true master architect. It is gratitude for the how. This is the profound and difficult art of being grateful for the struggle itself. It is the ability to look back at the darkest and most difficult parts of the construction, the flaws in the stone, the violent storms, the moments of despair, and to feel a sense of sincere appreciation. Why? Because the master understands that those were the moments that forged them. The flaw in the stone taught them creativity. The storm taught them resilience. The fear they overcame taught them courage. To be grateful for the struggle is to understand that the challenges were not obstacles to your character. They were the very chisel that carved your character. This is the ultimate alchemy of the Spirit. It is the ability to transform the lead of your past pain into the gold of your present wisdom. The architect who masters this level of gratitude is free. They are no longer a victim of their own history. They are its beneficiary. What are the fruits of a spirit that lives in this state of gratitude? First, gratitude is a magnet for joy. The world mistakenly believes that success brings happiness. But you all know people who are successful and miserable. The truth is, happiness is not the result of getting what you want. It is the result of appreciating what you have. Gratitude is the direct, unmediated path to joy. It is the act of finding the masterpiece in the life you already live, not the one you hope to live tomorrow. Second, gratitude is a shield against the poison of envy. The ungrateful mind is a mind of constant comparison. It looks at its own magnificent cathedral and feels only lack because it is obsessed with the taller spire of the cathedral next door. It is a life of perpetual misery. But the grateful mind is too busy admiring the light streaming through its own windows to worry about the size of its neighbors. Gratitude brings an inner peace that makes comparison irrelevant. And third, gratitude is the ultimate source of resilience. In the darkest winters of life, when the construction must halt, when the storms rage and the future is uncertain, the ungrateful mind collapses into despair. But the grateful mind can still find warmth. It can be grateful for the foundation that still stands. It can be grateful for the lessons the storm is teaching. It can be grateful for the simple, profound gift of the breath in its lungs, the sign that it will have the chance to rebuild when the storm passes. Gratitude is the unquenchable inner fire that can keep the architect's soul warm, even in the coldest of nights. This, then, is the law of the Spirit. It is the final and most beautiful act of the architect. To build a great structure is an accomplishment. To furnish it with the wisdom of the ages is a mark of intelligence. But to fill that wise and great structure with the warm, living light of gratitude that is the mark of a masterpiece. Your life is not meant to be a cold museum of your achievements. It is meant to be a vibrant, joyful, and deeply appreciated home for your soul. You have now built your magnificent structure. You have filled its great library with timeless wisdom. And with this final law, you have learned how to fill it with a living, breathing, and joyful spirit. The architect's work is now complete. The cathedral stands. It is strong. It is beautiful. It is wise. And it is warm. All that remains is to consider the ultimate meaning of this great work. It is time for the final unveiling and to reflect upon the true legacy of the master architect. And so, our journey through the architect's code comes to its conclusion. We have stood together on the fresh plot of land, contemplating the great work ahead. We have learned the sacred art of the blueprint, transforming our vague wishes into a grand design of profound clarity. We have studied the difficult, unseen work of the foundation, embracing the laws of labor, habit, and integrity. We have raised the walls of character, learning the philosophies of deliberate discomfort and unwavering resilience, and the vigilant discipline of the guardian. And we have completed the great work of inhabitation, furnishing our structure with the wisdom of the mind and the warm light of the spirit. The principles have been shared. The code has been revealed. And so, the architect builds, the sound of the hammer and the chisel becomes the steady rhythm of their days, the seasons turn, the sun rises and sets upon the construction site, the walls rise, stone by patient stone. The years, like the threads of a great tapestry, are woven into a magnificent and singular reality, until one day the final stone is set, the final window is polished, the last of the scaffolding is taken down, the dust settles, and a profound silence fills the space where, for a lifetime, there was the noble noise of creation. The work is done. This is the moment toward which all the discipline, all the courage, all the vision has been aimed. It is the moment of the great unveiling. It is the time to step back from the work and for the first time to behold the finished cathedral of a life. This is the philosophy of legacy. Let us together take a final walk through this magnificent structure you have built. As you approach from a distance, the first thing you notice is not a single detail, but the powerful coherence of the whole. The structure is not a random collection of walls and towers. It is a unified, singular vision made manifest in stone. This is the visible legacy of the blueprint. The grand design you drafted with such care in the quiet of your studio is now a towering reality for all the world to see. As you place your hand upon the great stone walls at the base, you feel no tremor, no weakness. The structure is solid, grounded, immovable. This is the quiet, powerful legacy of the foundation. It is the testament to the unseen work done in the dirt, the relentless labor, the disciplined habits, the integrity of building upon the bedrock of strong and positive associations. You look up, your gaze following the soaring walls as they reach for the sky. They are not pristine and untouched. They bear the subtle, honorable marks of the storms they have weathered. This is the beautiful, rugged evidence of the law of resilience, and their great height, the very ambition of their reach, is a testament to the law of deliberate discomfort. You know that every foot of this great height was purchased with a moment of courage, a choice to lift a heavy stone, to step beyond the easy and the comfortable. And then, You step inside. You enter the great halls of inhabitation. In one wing there is a magnificent library, its shelves filled with the wisdom of the ages. The air itself seems to hum with intelligence. This is the legacy of the law of the mind, and throughout the entire cathedral, a warm, golden light fills every space, a light that seems to emanate not from the windows, but from the very stones themselves. This is the unmistakable warmth of the law of the Spirit. It is the legacy of a grateful heart, a spirit that has learned to not just achieve, but to appreciate. But as you, the architect, walk through these halls, your eyes drawn to things the casual visitor would never notice. You see a particular archway, and you remember the great unforeseen flaw in the stone you discovered there. You remember the weeks of struggle, the creative challenge of adapting your design, of turning that crack not into a weakness, but into a unique and beautiful feature. You see a particular stained glass window high in the western wall, and you remember the brutal storm that hit just as you were installing it. You remember the temptation to quit, to give up, to declare the project a failure. But you did not, and now that window through which the afternoon sun now streams is a silent monument to your own resilience. The amateur, the drifter, dreams of a life of perfection, a life without flaws in the stone, without storms, without scars. The master architect understands the gospel of imperfection. They know that the truest, most profound beauty of the cathedral is not in its illusion of perfection. It is in its story, the story of the struggle, the story of the flaws that were overcome, the story of the storms that were endured. The scars are not defects. They are the most interesting and most honorable parts of the entire structure. They are the proof that the building has been tested and has stood. They are what give the cathedral its soul. And now we arrive at the final and most profound truth of the architect's life. After this long walk, after this reflection upon the great work, you must understand a beautiful and liberating irony. The cathedral, this magnificent finished structure of your life, which will stand for 100 years, it is not the true masterpiece. It is the evidence of the masterpiece. It is the result of the masterpiece, but it is not the masterpiece itself. What then was the purpose of it all? If the building is not the ultimate prize, then what is? The purpose of building the cathedral was not to have a cathedral. The purpose of the difficult, demanding, lifelong project was to transform the builder into a master architect. The resistance of the stone was not an obstacle, it was your teacher. The weight of the tools was not a burden, it was the force that built your strength. The storms were not a punishment, they were the fire that tempered the steel of your character. The entire lifelong process of construction was a divine and perfect forge. And in that forge, the true masterpiece was being created. The true masterpiece is you. It is the person of vision, of integrity, of discipline, of resilience, of wisdom, and of gratitude that you were required to become in order to do the work. The cathedral is a beautiful thing made of stone, and time will eventually turn it to dust. But the character you have forged within yourself, that is the work of art that is immortal, that is the true legacy. The final beautiful truth is that in setting out to build a great life, you were all along building a great self. And so we bring our gaze back from that distant final day and into the vibrant, potential-filled present moment. You are not at the end of your life. You are at the beginning of today's work. The story of the finished cathedral is not a memory, it is a vision. It is the promise of what is possible, and it must inform the choices you make right now. The plot of land for your future is clear and waiting. The architect's code is now yours. The blueprint is waiting to be drawn or to be honored. The silence of this new day is upon you. The tools are in your hand. Let us begin to build. Your great work begins not with a grand gesture, but with your very next choice. As your first act of this new construction, your first brick in this new foundation, I invite you to lay your commitment by subscribing to this channel. And in the comments below, make your public declaration. write these 4 powerful words: I am the architect. Let it be known that a new cathedral has officially broken ground. Thank you for your time.